Good day, everyone. I am Sheila May Edillon,
And I am Arjali Duhaylungsod.
and for today's video, we are going to looking at the question, what is a naturalism on its mythological position?
And we are going to discover on what exactly constitutes naturalism and its different types, namely ontological naturalism and methodological naturalism.
And before we dig deep into what is naturalism, let us take a look on the Egyptian mythology and its naturalistic approach that will give us an overview of naturalism in mythology. And also, we will give a little bit history of historical naturalism. All the ancient mythologies are evidently nature-oriented. Among all Egyptian mythology is deeply naturalistic in its conduct. All the mythologies have a specific tendency apart from being nature-oriented in general. The strong impetus of nature surpassed everything, including the immortal concept of the divine. The dominance of beasts and birds and their inseparable connection with the divine are stark. Nature even merges with the individual divine characters in Egyptian myths, focused on mortality, sexuality, and the cycle of conservation-consumption is in the core of humanity. Historically, naturalism is a historical position from the early 1900s. It was a movement in philosophy to do three things. First, to move philosophy closer to science. Second, to affirm that there is nothing beyond nature. And lastly, to use the scientific method to investigate everything that is real. In this hypothesis, all myths are thought to arise from an attempt to explain natural phenomena. People who believe in this theory narrow the source of myths of tracing their origins from the worship of the sun or the moon. The attitude of the naturalism is the philosophical belief that every existence and every single thing arises from natural phenomenon with one or more natural causes, and any supernatural or spiritual explanations behind it are denied. As naturalism looked its flight from realism, thus it is framed quite realistically. If we look deep into the framing of the mythology, we can observe the tendency of the same that is directed towards nature. The gods and goddesses, their conflict, their priorities are all suggestive of a nature-oriented culture. In-depth study of Egyptian mythology established the importance of nature in the lives of the people of Egypt and their dependence on the same. So as we said earlier that there are two kinds of naturalism. We're looking at ontological and methodological naturalism. These different criteria split up into two distinct positions: the ontological naturalism and the methodological naturalism. So first, let's talk about the ontological naturalism. Ontological naturalism, as the name suggests, it deals with what exists. Generally, ontological naturalists are committed that there are no entities that can have an influence on the physical world which are not themselves physical. So if you're an entity and if you can influence the physical world, that means you have to be physical. If you're some spiritual and non-corporeal entity and you have influence in the physical world, that means that ontological naturalism is going to fail. Basically, people are gonna disagree on what we mean by influences the physical world and what we really mean by physical world. opponents of ontological naturalism were going to assert that there are some non-physical entities which can affect the physical world. Within ontological naturalism, there is a disagreement as to what constitutes influence and what constitutes a physical entity.
We are done with ontological naturalism. Now, let's proceed to methodological naturalism. So first, let's define it. So it concerns with the methods of philosophy and their connection to science. So basically, from its root word, methods, it tackles about the methods that are found and eventually used in order to connect or to have the connection with science. Methodological naturalism concerns itself with methods of learning on what nature really is. So these methods are useful, very valuable in the evaluation of claims about existence and knowledge, and in identifying causal mechanisms responsible for the emergence or occurrence of physical phenomena. So, currently, that description of naturalism is not that particularly informative, since most of modern philosophers would agree with it. It may not be all, but most or many of them agree with that description. Methodological naturalists hold that both science and philosophy are searching for non-definitional truths or synthetic truths by using experiences or by means of posteriori. So meaning to say that these people are using experiences in order to search for non-definitional truths that science and philosophy are engaged with. So, synthetic truths are both truths, meaning to say both are truths in what people mean and the way the world is. Just like every other matter in this world, methodological naturalists will allow that there are some differences that philosophy and science have. However, they will allude that these are relatively superficial or shallow. Despite from the fact that these two differ in some methods, still methodological naturalism affirm that these two, philosophy and science, are interconnected in the same project, which is to learn synthetic truths about the world, generally by the means of posteriori or empirical means. In conclusions, or in a general view, methodological naturalists think that both science and philosophy are engaged in a posteriori pursuit of synthetic truths.